Welcome in. It is fantastic to have you joining us for today's deep dive.
Yeah, we are so glad you're here.
I know the kind of listener you are. You're someone who appreciates getting straight to the core of a subject.
Bypassing all that introductory fluff.
Exactly. You love those distinct aha moments that surface when you watch a complex personality evolve, and really unravel over time.
And that is the exact territory we are exploring today.
It really is the perfect subject for a character study.
Because we are analyzing a figure who has dominated the cultural conversation for more than 2 decades.
Right.
Yet the trajectory of her life continues to spark intense debate.
We are, of course, talking about the complete character arc of Miranda Hobbes.
From the Sex and the City universe.
Yeah. And since you already know the world, we aren't going to rehash the basic premises.
No need for that.
Instead, we're looking at her entire evolution. This spans the original 1998 series, the 2 feature films,
And the recent sequel series, and just like that.
Right. Our source material today is a really comprehensive profile detailing her storyline, her professional pivots, and her notoriously complicated romantic life.
It covers a lot of ground.
It does. And our mission, to figure out how a woman initially defined by her impenetrable, career-first, anti-romantic armor
Navigated unplanned motherhood.
yes, and the grinding realities of long-term marriage.
Not to mention a tectonic late-in-life reinvention.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start with that baseline persona from the early seasons.
Because the profile paints a very specific picture of her original status quo.
We're looking at a fiercely pragmatic corporate lawyer.
Right, Harvard and Columbia educated.
Exactly. And the defining detail the source highlights right away is her real estate.
Oh, the apartment.
Yes, she is the first of her core friend group to purchase her own Manhattan apartment.
Right on the Upper West Side.
Mm-hmm.
That apartment always felt like more than just a place to live. Was it essentially her fortress?
Precisely. It was the physical manifestation of her independence.
It's like a statement.
Purchasing that property was her declaring that she wasn't waiting for a partner to build a life.
Right. Her entire framework for relationships during this era was built on keeping people at arm's length.
Yeah, she viewed traditional romantic entanglements as an active threat to her carefully structured reality.
Which brings up a fascinating contradiction. If she is this impenetrable fortress of cynicism...
Who actually tries to break through that.
Exactly. And the source spends a good amount of time on Skipper Johnston from the first season.
On the surface, that dynamic makes 0 sense.
It is a jarring contrast. Skipper is a 27-year-old web developer.
And he operates with an entirely unguarded, idealistic worldview.
Yeah, he is a hopeless romantic.
Which makes him Miranda's absolute worst nightmare.
So why does she even entertain dating him? Is she secretly looking for someone to soften her up?
The documentation suggests the exact opposite, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she treats the dynamic more like a controlled experiment, or a temporary distraction.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
But the friction comes from the fact that Skipper becomes uncomfortably infatuated with her.
He expects a traditional romantic escalation.
And she is operating on a completely different frequency.
There is that one detail in the source material that perfectly encapsulates this disconnect.
The phone call.
Yes. Skipper is actually in the middle of a sexual encounter with another woman.
And Miranda happens to call his phone.
Right, and he abruptly ends the encounter with the other woman right then and there.
Assuming Miranda's phone call is some grand romantic signal.
And her reaction to that level of devotion tells you everything you need to know about her baseline psychology.
She doesn't find it flattering.
No, she finds it suffocating. She immediately suggests they see other people, effectively terminating the arrangement.
What's fascinating here is how Miranda represented a specific archetype.
And a rare one for television at the time.
Extremely rare. She was the unapologetically career-driven woman actively pushing back against the narrative that she needed to be swept off her feet.
Right. By rejecting Skipper's intense infatuation, she was setting a strict boundary.
She was stating that her professional trajectory was paramount.
And she refused to let a messy, idealistic version of romance derail her momentum.
That boundary is crystal clear.
But the problem with building impenetrable walls is that life usually finds a way to tear them down.
It always does.
And that brings us to the introduction of Steve Brady and the eventual shift into motherhood.
Now you know the setup. The corporate lawyer and the bartender.
From a sociological standpoint, what is the core friction there?
It is the ultimate clash of socioeconomic backgrounds.
Yeah. You have a woman who built her identity on elite education and high-earning corporate success.
Paired with a man who approaches life with a much more blue-collar, day-to-day philosophy.
The power dynamics are inherently skewed.
And that tension causes their initial breakups. They struggle to find common ground when their daily realities are so starkly different.
But the walls finally come down, and the catalyst is completely removed from their financial or professional differences.
The turning point is visceral and entirely grounded in mortality.
Steve is diagnosed with testicular cancer and requires surgery.
Confronted with his profound vulnerability, Miranda's cynicism fractures,
The source notes she shows genuine compassion, which leads to them sleeping together.
resulting in an unplanned pregnancy.
But true to her pragmatic nature, she doesn't immediately default to playing house, does she?
She doesn't. Her initial instinct is to consider an abortion.
Which aligns perfectly with the career-focused worldview we just discussed.
A child was never part of the master plan.
But she alters her course.
She decides to carry the pregnancy, informs Steve, and allows him the agency to determine his own level of involvement,
They eventually name the child Brady Hobbes, merging their surnames.
which is a subtle but distinct nod to her maintaining her independent identity even as she steps into motherhood.
Co-parenting creates this entirely new reality for her, but romantically it remains a labyrinth.
She realizes she's fallen in love with Steve, but the timing is disastrous.
They are both involved with other people.
And the source highlights her relationship with Dr. Robert Leeds.
On paper, Robert seems like the ultimate prize for the early season Miranda.
He does. Dr. Leeds is a successful sports medicine physician for the New York Knicks.
They meet while she is serving on her building's tenant board.
Their dynamic is energetic and affectionate. From a resume perspective, a high-profile doctor is a logical match.
It makes mathematical sense for an ambitious corporate attorney.
But the math doesn't add up emotionally.
No, she can't shake the lingering attachment to Steve.
And it culminates at a very specific milestone.
Their son Brady's first birthday party.
Surrounded by friends and family, she breaks down and confesses her love to Steve.
Effectively ending the relationship with Robert. It is a total surrender to emotion over logic.
It is the definitive moment where her meticulously crafted pragmatism fails her.
She chooses the complicated, messy reality of her feelings over the secure, logical partnership.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Because of how she chooses to formalize that commitment.
She doesn't just fall back into traditional gender roles.
She is the one who proposes to Steve.
They marry in a small, understated ceremony, and then they make a choice that is arguably the most shocking pivot of her entire arc up to that point.
They leave Manhattan
They purchase a townhouse in Brooklyn,
to accommodate their growing family.
which, for a diehard Manhattanite, is the equivalent of moving to another solar system.
Truly.
But beyond the zip code, what does that move actually represent for her character?
It represents the complete dismantling of that specific brand of 90s corporate feminism she originally embodied.
That Upper West Side apartment was her armor.
Trading it for a family home in Brooklyn signifies a shift from solitary independence to the often grueling reality of compromise.
She transitions into a working mother and wife navigating a dual-income household.
The pioneer becomes the pragmatist, trying to keep a complex family structure afloat.
That transition sets the stage perfectly for the cinematic chapter of her journey,
We are moving into the two feature films.
which strip away a lot of the lingering romantic comedy tropes and expose the crushing pressures of long-term marriage and peak career demands.
Let's look at the first film, set in 2008. The picture it paints is heavy.
It is a portrait of exhaustion.
The source outlines a very relatable, difficult scenario. Steve's mother is suffering from advancing Alzheimer's disease and requires care in a nursing home.
And Miranda is juggling her demanding legal career while managing the household with her housekeeper, Magda.
The sheer volume of their daily responsibilities has eroded their connection.
They haven't been physically intimate in 6 months.
The romantic spark has been entirely smothered by the logistics of adult life.
And that deprivation leads to the central conflict.
Steve confesses to a one-time infidelity.
And Miranda's response is swift and absolute.
She packs up, leaves the Brooklyn townhouse, and relocates to the Lower East Side.
There is no initial room for negotiation.
It feels like a regression to her season 1 rigidity.
She builds the wall right back up, but the fallout from that separation extends way beyond her own marriage.
It causes significant collateral damage. Her bitterness becomes contagious.
It really does. While grappling with her own shattered marriage, she has a conversation with Carrie's fiancé, big.
operating from a place of deep hurt.
She explicitly tells him that marriage ruins relationships.
And Big, who already has a history of commitment issues, internalizes that cynicism.
He gets cold feet and abandons Carrie at the altar.
That interference forces a brutal, necessary confrontation.
Carrie eventually discovers what Miranda said and calls her out on a glaring double standard.
The hypocrisy is striking.
Miranda expects, and ultimately receives, absolute grace and forgiveness from Carrie for actively contributing to a ruined wedding.
Yet she absolutely refuses to extend that same grace to her own husband for a single transgression.
That confrontation acts as a mirror. It forces her to look at her own rigidity.
It pushes her and Steve into couples therapy, and they establish a deadline.
They agree to meet on the Brooklyn Bridge in 2 weeks if they both decide the marriage is worth saving.
And how does she go about making this monumental, life-altering decision?
She drafts a pros and cons list.
The attorney defaults to building a case.
But the list is useless.
Completely useless.
The turning point isn't analytical at all.
She is looking in the mirror, sees herself with a milk mustache.
And it unexpectedly triggers a memory of a lighthearted, joyful moment she shared with Steve.
It is such a brilliant narrative detail because it proves that a decades-long partnership isn't sustained by a ledger of right and wrong.
It is sustained by shared history and levity.
That single memory cuts through the anger.
She goes to the bridge, and they reconcile.
It is a profound resolution to her marital crisis.
She learns that forgiveness is a requirement for long-term survival.
However, by the time we reach the second film in 2010, the crisis has migrated from her marriage back to her professional life.
The source details a severe case of career burnout.
She is an overextended partner at her firm, and she hits a wall of blatant systemic gender bias.
She is continually marginalized by the male leadership.
And after being explicitly silenced and dismissed during a critical meeting, she does something that the early season Miranda would have considered professional suicide.
She walks out. She quits.
Steve supports the decision, but the transition is jarring for her.
For the first time in her adult life, she doesn't have a demanding career defining her daily schedule.
She tries to lean into the domestic sphere.
She attends Brady's school events and tries to be the omnipresent mother.
But she also takes a trip to Abu Dhabi with the Central Friend Group.
And even on vacation, her type A personality refuses to rest.
She takes total control of the itinerary and even studies Arabic in preparation.
She treats the vacation like a corporate merger.
She really does. But the pivotal moment of that trip isn't a sightseeing excursion.
It is a highly vulnerable conversation she has with Charlotte over drinks.
That scene is vital because she finally articulates the crushing, silent pressure of the good mother myth.
She admits out loud how overwhelming and impossible the expectations are for women to seamlessly balance domestic perfection with personal fulfillment.
Voicing that resentment seems to break a spell.
When she returns to New York, she doesn't scramble back to the high-stakes corporate grind, but she doesn't stay a stay-at-home mother either.
She finds a middle ground, taking a position at a much more relaxed, culturally progressive law firm.
Right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Miranda's arc through these two films perfectly encapsulates a modern societal struggle.
It is the friction of the mental load.
She is attempting to balance peak career ambitions with the often invisible, unrelenting demands of parenting and sustaining a marriage.
She hits a breaking point in both arenas.
Her marriage in the first film, her career in the second.
In both instances, the only way forward is to dismantle her rigid expectations and negotiate a more sustainable, authentic way to live.
Which makes the most recent chapter of her life so wildly unpredictable.
We are entering the sequel series, and just like that, covering 2021 to 2025.
This era is defined by a paradigm-shifting, late-in-life reinvention.
And the catalyst is rooted in the broader cultural shifts happening around her.
The source notes that her shifting worldview is heavily spurred by her involvement in the Black Lives Matter movement,
which acts as a narrative driver for her to reevaluate her impact on the world.
She leaves corporate law entirely.
In her 50s, she returns to academia, enrolling in a master's degree program in human rights at Columbia University.
It is a complete professional reset.
But her domestic life is concurrently undergoing a painful, quiet decay.
Her son, Brady, is now a sexually active teenager.
And that hard-won marriage to Steve, the one they fought to save on the Brooklyn Bridge.
It has devolved into an emotional desert.
The intimacy is entirely gone, replaced by comfortable routine and distance.
They're functioning as roommates?
The fire has burned out, and they are essentially coasting through the twilight of their relationship.
And right in the middle of this stagnation, she experiences a profound romantic and sexual awakening.
She develops a magnetic attraction to Che Diaz, a non-binary stand-up comedian and podcast host working with Carrie.
This isn't framed as a fleeting midlife crisis.
The source material outlines this as a fundamental shift in her identity and her understanding of her own desires.
The fallout from this realization is absolute.
Miranda makes the agonizing decision to end her decades-long marriage to Steve.
Furthermore, she turns down a highly competitive, prestigious human rights internship in New York.
Simply so she can follow Chi to Los Angeles.
Think about the dissonance there.
The woman who once viewed relationships as a threat to her ambition actively abandons a premier career opportunity to prioritize a romantic connection.
The source material is clear that this separation from Steve causes profound hurt.
It is a messy, painful unwinding of a shared life.
But it doesn't end in permanent estrangement, does it?
It doesn't.
Despite the visceral pain of the separation, the documentation notes that by the end of the second season, Miranda and Steve managed to begin rebuilding a cordial, functional dynamic.
They find a way to honor their history without being trapped by it.
Right.
So what does this all mean?
When you step back and look at this sprawling, decades-long journey, it completely shatters the prevalent cultural illusion that a character's happy ending in their 30s is a permanent static state.
The neat bow we thought was tied around her life when she moved to Brooklyn wasn't the end of the book.
It was just the conclusion of a single chapter.
It challenges a very calcified narrative we hold about aging.
Society often suggests that once you achieve certain milestones,
The career, the marriage, the house.
your personal growth ceases. You are simply supposed to maintain the status quo.
Miranda's later years prove that development is continuous, and sometimes maintenance requires blowing up the very life you worked so hard to build.
Which is exactly why this evolution is so relevant to you, the listener.
Think about the incredible distance this character traveled. She started as a closed-off, cynical attorney who wouldn't let a partner's idealism penetrate her armor.
Over the course of decades, she transformed into a vulnerable, searching student in her 50s.
Willing to embrace a new sexual identity and uproot her entire existence for a chance at authenticity.
It is a striking reminder that personal evolution doesn't halt just because you've successfully checked off the traditional boxes.
The house, the spouse, the title, they aren't the finish line.
This raises an important question about how we value consistency versus growth.
We frequently praise individuals for remaining unchanged, for being reliable fixtures in our lives.
But does clinging to an old identity eventually become a liability?
Miranda's early cynicism served a purpose. It protected her while she built her foundation.
But she had to actively shed that armor to become a mother and a partner.
Later, she had to shed the identity of the pragmatic corporate wife to discover a deeper layer of personal truth.
We hold on to these outdated versions of ourselves because they offer the illusion of safety.
Or perhaps because it is simply what the people around us have come to expect.
But if a character defined by strict logic and rigid boundaries can continuously rewrite her own script,
it proves that reinvention is always an option, regardless of the timeline. So true.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you step back into your day.
Think about the various chapters you have already lived through.
When you look back at the relationships you maintained, or the career choices you committed to 5, 10, or 20 years ago, were they true reflections of your authentic self?
Or were they just the specific role you felt obligated to play at that given moment?
And as you look ahead, ask yourself how much of your current, deeply held identity might actually be a relic of the past, just waiting for a rewrite.
The only way to find out is to start turning the page.
Catch you on the next deep dive.